Thank you, Joe. Delegates, it gives me great pleasure to be invited to introduce our first guest, who really needs no introduction. Sally McManus is the Secretary of the ACTU and a good friend of the FSU. She has been instrumental in cementing the important role that unions have played in advocating for frontline and essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sally's going to talk to us about the scourge of insecure work and share with us the plan to transform our community to a place where employers are obligated to provide well paid, secure work and only use casual workers where they are genuinely casual. I hope you're as excited as I am to hear not only about the plan, but how we can ensure that finance workers are involved in this transformation. Welcome, Sally.
Hi, everyone. I always say it's great to be here, but it sort of isn't. I would so like to be face to face with you all in a room somewhere. And I know all of that will happen soon, and that'll be something for us to all look forward to. Hey, I want to acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Pay respects to elders past and present. Also wanted to acknowledge all of you leaders here today. I know it's been such a tough time for finance sector workers throughout COVID. Obviously, it's been a tough time for everyone, but also for you. I know, especially in the early days when we didn't really understand the virus and there was so much fear, that a lot of you are frontline workers, essential workers, and that it was a pretty difficult job on the front line at that time, and that you went to work and risked yourselves at that time as essential workers. And also know that so many of you have been working from home and working from home for a long time now. And I know that that's been positive, but also it's got its negatives too, and that it's tough. And for everyone who's been in cities that have been locked down like I have over this period of time, we just know how tough all of that is. But we're emerging from the other side now. Also know, of course, that your employers, they never miss an opportunity, really, do they? And shutting down branches and using COVID as an excuse to do that, you have the solidarity of the whole union movement. Listen, the thing is about COVID too, and like lots of people have said, it really exposes sort of all the weaknesses of any society, and it certainly has for us in Australia. So the fact that only 1 in 3 workers had sick leave during the pandemic, or all the time, but during a pandemic, and only having no sick leave. And so many of them were essential workers. So aged care workers, for example, not having sick leave because they're casuals. A whole lot of other workers right across, cleaners, everyone. And that this is a big shock to the Australian public who aren't in insecure work, and realising that we've got this big problem has been something that's really come to the fore, which is a positive for us because it means really public opinion's on the side of changing things. And also, millions of casual workers lost their jobs at various times just overnight, and how traumatic that has been for people. And so we know that people now recognise this has been a big problem for our country. All of our research shows that, but you will know that that's the case. And the problem, of course, for insecure work, like you, so many of you in your day-to-day jobs know this, about how difficult it is to plan a life if you're in casual work, or if you're a part-time worker with not enough hours, and being able to get home loans, all of those things, how much pressure it puts on people and how unfair that is. These jobs quite often are ongoing jobs, but without the rights of ongoing jobs. And we know too that people in insecure work also deal with all these other problems, and it really comes down to their lack of bargaining power. So much more likely to suffer wage theft, much more likely to be sexually harassed or bullied, and much more likely just to be left out at work. And that sort of goes to your self-respect, and it ekes away at it. And also, when you're in insecure work, you just don't spend in the same way as others. And that makes our whole economy weaker, because if you don't have a reliable job, you're not a reliable spender. And in the end, of course, that just hurts families. It really wrecks people's way of life. And we've got an opportunity actually to change it now. And that's the exciting thing. And you think over the last 30 years, there's just been so many different types of insecure work. I know in your industry, they won't be the same as other industries, but part-time work where employers say, yeah, okay, you've guaranteed a minimum of 8 hours, but then you get flexed up and down every single week and you don't get the casual loading. Obviously, casual work, outsourcing and labour hire, fixed term contracts, gig economy. And you think, okay, there's all of these different ways. Like, why have employers done this? Like, why have they moved away from permanent employment and permanent rights? Well, we all know they do it because it's cheaper. Pretty simple. And they're going to find any way to do something that's cheaper if it's lawful for them to do so. So in the end, it's because governments allow them to. Governments put in place the ground rules, all the laws around employment, and where our laws allow them to do it, they're going to do it if it's cheaper. So essentially what we've got to do is change those rules. And we need a government that's prepared to change the rights that workers have, to shut down all those ways that employers have found to make jobs insecure. When they do that, basically then those rules apply to all employers, and so they're not going to compete against each other by cutting wages and making jobs insecure. So governments can just make jobs more secure by saying that if a job's ongoing and a job's permanent, it can't be turned into a casual job. You can't outsource to a lower paid labour hire company. You've got to be paid the same. They can bring in all of these laws. In fact, we've done all the work to know exactly what laws need to be in place, because they're in place in other countries and they work well. And we've got a problem in our country. We've got a really high number of insecure work. So we just need a government that's got the guts and cares enough to actually do it. Now, the really positive thing is that the public's really on side with this. The ABC did this really huge survey, the See Australia Talks survey, and it says that 88% of people say that insecure work is a problem for our country. And our own research at the ACTU says the same, that people want change on this. And so us campaigning on this issue, we're campaigning where we know the public's on side. But the problem we've got, hey, is that we don't have a government at the moment who's prepared to do anything about it. And if you think about Scott Morrison, like, he doesn't hold a hose, does he? He's not prepared to do anything when the nation's in a big crisis like bushfires. He wasn't prepared to do anything about Brittany Higgins, like, where terrible sexual assault in his own workplace. What did he do? Absolutely nothing. Said it wasn't his problem. Think about climate change. They don't even have a plan, do absolutely nothing on that issue. Vaccines, like buying vaccines on time. It wasn't a race, like basically lazy and slow. Quarantine, he just like shifted the job onto all the states and said it's not his problem, it's not his job, when it actually was his job. And that's the reason why a whole lot of us ended up in lockdown, because of breaks out of hotel quarantine. National ICAC, so National Anti-Corruption Commission, is doing absolutely nothing to do nothing, everything he can to do nothing on it. And dare I say, the Banking Royal Commission. So, when it comes to taking action there, we'll do absolutely nothing as well. And so this really comes down to, like, I just think about everything that working people did the last 18 months and what you all did and what a whole lot of workers did, put themselves on the line and stepped up for the country. Like, we did our job. We need someone who's going to do theirs. And he certainly won't. And in the case of job security, yeah, he's lazy. Yeah, he won't do anything, but it's pretty convenient, isn't it? It's conveniently lazy, really. And why? Because so big business can continue to do what they want. So they can continue to cut wages by making jobs insecure. And it seems to me that when it comes down to it, the only job Scott Morrison really cares about is his own. And he'll spin, he'll do whatever marketing, whatever lies and scare campaign he can to hold on to his own job. And a really good example of this is the issue of casuals converting into permanent work. This year, he passed laws that he went out and he did this whole sort of, press conferences saying that casuals will be able to convert into permanent jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And we looked at these laws. We knew they're totally useless. totally useless. And the data's coming in your industry, it's about 7%, like 7% of all the casuals, employers have said, yeah, okay, we'll convert you, 93% failure rate. So, I mean, these laws are just useless, like he is really, and it's a big problem, and we need people who are going to step up, not ones that will walk away when there's a hard problem. So I know that this will, in the back of your minds, you'll be thinking, well, there's only one other alternative government, that's Labor, and can we rely on them to do anything? Well, really, in the end, like, they've got a campaign around these issues, but they're publicly committed to acting on the issue of job security, publicly committed to changing the laws to do exactly what I've talked about. They are saying that that's what they'll do, and they're campaigning. They're going to campaign on that issue. So we know that if there were a change of government, we've got a very good chance of making really, really, really big difference for ourselves and for our own jobs, but also for our kids into the future. The other thing is, we certainly know if Scott Morrison gets elected, it'll be more attacks on our rights, because he'll do what big business want him to. So I guess all of this is in our hands in the end, and I sort of do worry about the next election. Like, I just think Scott Morrison's going to say whatever he needs, like whatever he thinks he needs to say, he'll say it, whether it's true or not, in order to scare people or to get elected. I mean, what we need to do is to be having discussions in our workplace with our fellow union members and our potential members about the issues we care about. So I know job security is a big issue in your industry, just like it is everywhere else. What we will provide you is simple ways of talking about it that we know really work, because we've tested them. And it's simply about pointing out it's a problem. And when we do that, talking about the personal impact on people, not about facts and figures, about the fact it's hard to plan your life, about the stress it puts on families. And secondly, point out that politicians can act if they want to. Just look at the pandemic. When they needed to do things, they stepped up and they did it. Not Scott Morrison, but most of the others did. But even on the issues, say, when we knew we couldn't manufacture, we didn't have enough masks in Australia, well, governments worked out we could manufacture it here. They do it when they know, when they want to do it, they can. What Scott Morrison, he had a chance to fix this with those laws around casuals. And of course, he really walked away and didn't do the job that's needed. And we just need a change of government if we're going to turn around these things. So I've just asked if you would be involved in the campaign. The election will be next year, obviously, either in March or in May. As soon as the election's called, we'll call a really big delegates meeting for all delegates across the country. We're going to equip all of you with the way to talk about this issue in your workplaces. We can have a big effect because, in the end, your ability to pay your bills and your deal with cost of living depends on how secure your job is now and into the future. So I would ask that you be involved, and I know that you'll be discussing this tomorrow, and I might leave it there. Thanks very much.